Today, I want to talk about fibroids because I was asked about them multiple times yesterday. So, we're going to dive into a topic that I haven't discussed before, and we'll get to all of that and how it links to insulin resistance in just a minute. This is going to be a shorter talk, so I want to spend a lot of time today just talking about insulin resistance and answering your questions and talking about the protocol that's sweeping the world and helping people get over their insulin resistance, just like I did. So, welcome in, you guys. We're talking insulin resistance, related disorders, how you can tell it's you, a simple solution that helps. But today, we're specifically going to talk about fibroids for those women who know what they are and have suffered with them. They're little benign tumors on your in and around your uterus, and they can be painful and debilitating and confusing. So we're going to talk about one of the reasons that they're probably happening and how you can get better from it. And it is linked to insulin resistance. I'm going to explain that mechanism. But in the meantime, welcome in. Good morning, Rebecca, Jamie, Stanley. Good morning, you guys. And by the way, gentlemen, if you have questions about insulin resistance, although we're talking about fibroids today, please ask. I'd love to answer, because this does go into, and I haven't talked about this for a while. So men who are hopping on understand that insulin resistance can also play with your testosterone levels and make them drop, as well as other functions that you want to maintain can start to diminish with insulin resistance. So this is a little bit of reproductive uh, health and insulin resistance mixed up. Okay, so we're going to talk about it all. You guys let me know where you're coming from. Let me know what it is you guys need to hear about, because I want to talk about it. But in the meantime, this was me 3 years ago before I found the system, and I could hardly walk. And I had a walker and a cane, and I had disability plates over on Facebook, YouTube. You can probably see it better. But I was miserable, and I had hair in my face. Nobody was able to help me understand why all of this stuff was happening to my body. And I was going to doctor after doctor to figure it out, and no answers. So then I started a simple protocol, which is 2 teas or it's 3 drinks, 2 drinks that I have at 3 points during the day. And that changed everything. That's why I'm here talking about it, because after years of working in uh, medical and not getting results, I found results with this when I gave it a shot. And I was shocked at how much my health got better. Not only from, like I used to suffer from fibroids, not so much by the time I started the system. I wish I would have known a lot of this information when I was younger. Do you still take them if you're not having lunch? No, you don't have to take them if you're not having lunch. So, you guys, we're going to dive into the system. I'm going to kind of do this backwards today since you're asking. So these are the 3 drinks, right? So we have a tea in the morning, which I have mine right here that I'm starting to drink right now. We have a tea in the afternoon, and we have a pre-meal drink that we have before we eat our biggest meal with the carbohydrates in it during a day. If you don't have lunch, you don't have to have the fiber, but I would still have the tea, because the tea is still delivering a lot of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, anti-inflammatories. It helps your body be more receptive to sugar, so that, what I mean by that is, the cells, instead of being insulin resistant, they start to open up and allow that glucose into the cells. The tea has been shown to help with that. So there's a lot of benefits to the tea: energy, satiety, just keeping your blood sugars at bay, helping you with HGH and ketones during that fasting period. So you only take 1 tea. Try 2. Joanne, so how I do my tea is I don't really drink much else anymore outside of tea and water. Because by the time I finish this tea this morning, and you guys, I do put my tea in more water. I don't put it in just a small amount of water. The tea is a little too strong for me that way, so I dilute it down, and then I just sip on it. I'll finish that tea by noon, and then when I'm ready to start having another drink, because I'm a hydrator, I'll have my other tea. Now, besides it giving me hydration, the second tea gives me that boost of energy. I used to suffer from chronic adrenal fatigue. It was so bad that some doctors said they didn't know how I was upright. And I would have to take naps throughout the day. Every single day, I would just be so depleted and drained of energy. And nobody could figure that out either, but that was all a sign of insulin resistance. And now I don't have those I got a nap during the day moments. I don't have those. I feel like every bit of energy is drained out of me. And so if I do start to feel a drop, and I have a lot of stuff going on today, so I'll have my second tea about lunchtime. I will eat my lunch, and so I'll have my pre-meal drink before lunch, or right with lunch. Actually, now we're going to talk about that in a minute. But yeah, try two teas. And there's nothing that says you have to do two teas, but you are increasing your insulin sensitivity. You're helping your GLP-1, that glucagon-like peptide that's so popular for people with weight loss and diabetes control. That increases by up to 70% when drinking this, when having these two throughout the day. So how long did it take to lose all the weight? So Stritz, for me, I still have some weight to lose, not gonna lie. So I have heart problems, I have no gallbladder. Those things impede a lot of my weight loss, and so we're working through that. But to lose that initial 55 pounds, it took me about 5 months. So, and it wasn't 5 months of strict dieting, you guys. It wasn't like, "Oh my gosh, I can't eat. I have to do this really restrictive diet." I do more restrictive now because now we're working on deeper issues with my health, but I had hamburgers probably once a day during that time and still lost the 55 pounds because my body was getting more sensitive to the energy. And along the way, like I said, I wasn't feeling like I had to nap all the time. My sleep apnea started to go away. I used to wake up 60 times an hour. Now I used to wake up multiple times in the night to go to the restroom. You would have never, ever, ever convinced me that it was diabetes. I would have just told you, no, it's just because I drink so much water. But I was getting up in the night to go to the restroom all the time. I couldn't sleep. My joints hurt. All of that changed, and I lost the 55 pounds in 5 months. And we can talk about some more of that. So I want to go over this little bit about fibroids, and I'll talk about it again in a minute if somebody else wants to know. But fibroids, this was interesting because I've not ever talked about fibroids before. And so I'm always curious as to how this stuff links in and if it links in. And here's what we know. There is a potential link between insulin resistance and fibroids. Hey, yes, Ro, I'm early. Um, there's plenty of reasons for that, but mostly that I recorded a video last night and I said 8 a.m. instead of 8:30 a.m. So here I am. Can I set up a one-on-one with you? You live in Europe. Sure, Stritz. So if you go to my profile link up here and you tap on the link right below the red lights that show up in my profile, there's an option to contact me on WhatsApp. So I don't care where you're at in the world. If you have WhatsApp, we can talk and we can start to figure out if this could work for you. And I'm absolutely happy to do that. Just text me and tell me what times are good for you, and I'll try to work something in. But the WhatsApp link is up in that profile as well. It's not just about the sales, although my website is there, the link to get the product is there. Um, the link to my blog, you guys, and the information that I'm talking about on fibroids today will go up in the blog today. So I'm building that blog, and I don't know that I'll post in it every day, but a couple of times a week you'll find posts in there about how certain things link to insulin resistance. And I'm going to let you know that my blog is always going to tie it back to the Feel Great system because it's the one thing that I found that is working without damaging people's health. So if you don't want to do the medications, I was just listening to you, Ro, and somebody was on there giving you heck because they were talking about their medications. And, besides the fact that if you're not paying for your medications, it doesn't matter, right? Like you don't care. But for me, it's more the health aspect, more so than the money. When I was on medications, I hated it because I understood, having worked in medical offices, how much damage those medications can do to your body and how much other dis-ease and disorder they can start to cause by causing further imbalance in your body. So I'm just not a proponent of medications unless they're like life-saving. Like if you're septic or you have a broken bone and you need pain meds, those times I get it. But the rest of the time, if it's dealing with lifestyle related issues, damn straight I want to have food to fix the food imbalances that we're experiencing today, making us sick. So back to fibroids. Up to 80% of women suffer from fibroids at some point in their life. And generally, it tends to be between their 40s and the 50s that they really start to develop. They can be show up present in your 30s and some maybe some earlier, but that predominant time is like once you hit 40, you'll start to have these benign, meaning non-cancerous tumors on your uterus, and they're extremely painful. They can be all over. They can be inside your uterus. They can be on the outside of your uterus. Some of them can kind of be in between the layers of the uterus, and those are really rare but pretty painful. So why are 80% of women getting fibroids, and how did we get here? Because I haven't had the time to do that much research, but I don't believe that fibroids were such an issue in times past. Now, also caveat, I understand also that science was not looking at a lot of stuff, just like it wasn't looking at insulin resistance. So maybe doctors didn't understand because I had fibroids in my 30s, and you know what my doctors told me? This is very personal. They thought it was an STD, even though I never had an STD. I never had any markers of it. They were sure that that's what it was. When all along it was just. And then finally, a doctor said, "Oh, you've got fibroids all over your uterus." So science has changed a lot, and women, I'm so sorry that we've had to go through this judgmental, like anytime anything is wrong with us, we're something is wrong with us, right? That's not true. So let's get into it. Fibroids. So this increase in insulin with insulin resistance. Let's talk about insulin resistance so we can understand how it's relating to fibroids in the first place. Number one, we're eating too often. Number two, we're eating foods that are not perfect anymore. They've been modified, every single one of our foods, whether you're eating raw organic foods or whether you're eating those bag box barcoded foods, they're imperfect. So you can do the best you can, but if your body is not getting enough of the nutrients you need, you're going to start to suffer. And our foods have been stripped of it. They've been modified so that they're bigger, juicier, plumper. And in order to do that, they've stripped out enzymes and fibers, stuff that keeps that fruit dense or vegetable dense and a little bit bitter. And they've stripped the fiber out and pumped up the glucose in it so that we want to have more of it. And then we look at all the bagged, box, barcoded fast foods. When we eat out all the time, it's cooked in these oils that are causing more inflammation in the body, blah, blah, blah. So we're eating all the wrong stuff and we're eating it all too often. And this is creating a rise of glucose in our system because of a lack of fiber. And because of a lack of satiety, we're eating too much. So that glucose goes up. We can only have about 1 teaspoon of glucose in our whole bloodstream, or our body starts to go, yo, whoa, we're this is too much. It's going to cause damage inside the blood vessels. And it does, and it will. That blood becomes very sticky, and it can cause little tears inside the inner wall of your blood vessels, and it causes a lot of damage. I talked a little bit about some of this yesterday, but insulin resistance starts happening because this rise in blood sugar elicits us to have a rise in insulin. Insulin is a transport that's going to carry that blood sugar to the cells of the body so that they can use them for energy. Every cell has insulin receptors on them. Every cell needs energy to survive and thrive. But in the state that we are in today, most of us, 93% of us are in today, we are not able to get the energy from the food into our cells. So we're left hungry and depleted and having all kinds of physical disorders that doctors can't explain. But yet, if we look at insulin resistance, we could understand it. More and more doctors are standing up and admitting to the fact that they were not given nutrition classes, nor were they ever taught about insulin resistance in med school. And there's reasons for that we're not going to get into right now. But bottom line, now you're insulin resistant because high levels of insulin all the time causes this condition called hyperinsulinemia, too much insulin. That too much insulin coursing through your veins all the time starts to make the cells desensitized to the cues of insulin. So now insulin gets to the cells, and the cells are like, yeah, you're annoying. I don't want you anymore. Yeah, you come knocking on my door too much. And so now the cell won't open up to insulin when it's bringing this package of energy. So now we have excess energy floating around the body. In insulin resistance, one of the things that happens is some cells are resisting the insulin, which is just delivering energy packets, and some cells are like, give me more. And so they're taking up that excess insulin. Either way, some cells getting not enough energy, some cells getting too much energy. We start to see problems happen. The reason I talk about this, good morning, Max. So the reason I talk about all of this is because you need to understand that the one major concern for our health today is insulin resistance. Whether it's underactive in cells or whether it's overactive in cells, it's causing disease and disorder throughout. And that's how all of this has happened to most of us that are living with a regular lifestyle today. Okay, so insulin resistance means some cells are resisting insulin, some cells are taking up too much. What insulin can't get into those cells, either the ones that are greedy or the ones that are, I'm not taking anymore, it starts to take it to your storage unit or your fat cells. Now it's filling up those fat cells. You're starting to gain weight. Now, not every person with insulin resistance is obese because everybody's fat cells grow differently. And we can talk about that in a little bit. I want to finish up about fibroids. But good morning, Nelda. Good morning. Good morning, Faith. Welcome in, you guys. We're talking about fibroids this morning. So now we understand insulin resistance a little bit, I hope, right? Do you guys understand insulin a little bit and why we're getting insulin resistant and what's happening? So now that we're in the state of insulin resistance, I've talked in talks about PCOS, and if anybody needs me to do that this morning, I'm more than happy to do that. But insulin, through a number of factors, women, we're talking about fibroids, so we're talking about women at this point. Insulin interferes with your hormone production in your ovaries. So what we need to understand is some places, some doctors and some, like I was reading an article from a fibroid center, and they said insulin resistance causes you to produce too much testosterone, ladies. And according to Dr. Bickman, that's not so much the case. What happens is we all produce androgens first, okay? There are some what they call granddaddy hormones, but we're going to take a look at the big daddy hormones, the sex hormones. So testosterone and DHEA are produced first, and out of that, our body converts it with aromatase, a chemical that's put out in our ovaries, ladies, and it's a smaller amount in your testes, men, but it converts that androgen into estrogens. So now if we have insulin resistance, the ovaries are not getting the right cues, so your estrogen levels are rising simply because it's not getting converted into estrogens. Your estrogen levels are falling because insulin is messing with how that testosterone or androgen is being converted into estrogens. Now you have a hormonal imbalance. Now, your uterus is extremely sensitive to these fluctuations in hormones. When we start to have a fluctuation, either too much, which can happen at some point during your cycle if you're insulin resistant, you're not getting any estrogen, and then all of a sudden you start converting and you have a spike of estrogen, or you have this low chronic low grade estrogen. That all seems to affect fibroid growth and encourages fibroid growth. Whenever the estrogen is out of balance, that's going to start to encourage some of that fibroid growth. In this it's in an indirect way, I would say, insulin resistance is causing fibroids in that way. But some of the other things that are happening with fibroids are that we have an increase in insulin, but we also have an increase in insulin-like growth factor. So I've talked a little bit before about like skin tags and acanthosis nigricans. What I say are those greedy cells taking up too much. So skin tags, it's taking up too much keratinocytes, and you start ending up with these excess growth of skin. Similar thing is happening in the uterus. When we're getting too much of the insulin, the growth factors, it's causing these fibroids to grow, or it's creating an environment where they can grow even better. And this is such a strong correlation that they're finding that most women with fibroids also have insulin resistance or diabetes. Now, to be honest, science is not there yet. Insulin resistance studies are just so new. I mean, it's maybe 10, 12 years that we've been really studying it. So the more studies they do and the more they start to figure this out, the more they're linking other things to it. But fibroids is one of those ways. We haven't done a ton of studies. So I have a couple of simple ways that they're saying that insulin resistance affects fibroids. But I'm going to tell you that, in my opinion, it's worth taking care of your insulin resistance and seeing how that goes. My female organ pain from those things started to get better when I started to address my own insulin resistance. Even though I was menopausal, you still have a number of things like these hormone. By the way, in menopause, part of the reason the fibroids go away is our estrogen levels, all of our hormone levels start to drop anyway, and our body's adjusting to that. So there's those. Now, the insulin-like growth factor, the sex hormones, there was one more way um, that this is happening. Oh, inflammation. How could I forget inflammation? So, insulin resistance causes body-wide low-grade inflammation. This inflammation, inflamed cells, can actually create more of those fibroids with the inflammation present. Sex hormones are off, too much insulin like growth factor, and now inflammation. Now we have a perfect storm for your uterus to start causing or creating fibroids. Again, this is one more time I'm going to say get that insulin resistance under control, start to reverse the insulin resistance, and you can start to see help from these fibroids. Now, the system I'm talking about is not designed to deal with fibroids. I want to be careful in saying that. The system is designed to deal with insulin resistance. But with more and more science linking all of this stuff to insulin resistance, I want you to know that the simplest thing you can do for the global scape of your health is to deal with your insulin resistance. And that's just these two products that I have at 3 points during the day. So, any questions so far? Does anybody have questions? And does that kind of answer the questions on fibroids? You guys, I'm doing a little bit of changes. So I have a blog now where some of this information is kept in written form. So this information will go up on the blog today. I have a long video. It's about 8-10 minutes long, talking about directly about these issues. So you'll be able to find more information on that. Plus, if you want to go back and rewatch the live, it's on YouTube all the time. All of these are there. But you can go find all of that information on all of these conditions. And I'm really trying to help you guys understand that medications and no answer from physicians is not the best way to health. So we want to start addressing that insulin resistance. Now, the T and balance, how are they going to help you with fibroids? Right? So this balance is the pre-meal drink that I have right when I eat. So there's new studies that show that it is more effective if you take it right when you eat. We used to say 10 minutes before. Again, science is changing. Wow. So this is a matrix of fibers. I was going to say a multitude. It kind of is. 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers. They're aimed at reducing that blood sugar level. You get that blood sugar level down, you get those insulin levels more normal. Now your sex hormones can start getting converted. Now your insulin-like growth factor is going down. Now your inflammation should be going down. And you then can start to affect what's causing those fibroids to start to flare up. Now that it's, you know what, I need to change it here because I have it Vibrant Living, and it's actually every other platform, it's Brilliant Health, and my blog is at Brilliant Health, and my website is at Brilliant Health. So Brilliant Health blog, brillianthealth.com, and on YouTube and on Facebook, those are also Brilliant Health. TikTok's giving me heck trying to change this, and I should just sit down and get that changed because it should be Brilliant Health. Okay, so that's where you'll find me on YouTube. And by the way, if you go to my link in my profile, there's links on the bottom of that landing page to all of my other platforms. So all you have to do is open up that link, click on which platform you want to get to, whether it's X, Instagram, YouTube, and it'll take you to my page there, wherever that's at. So I hope that helps. Okay, so let's talk about this insulin resistance. You guys, this was me. And you know what? It's funny when you guys ask about things, there are things in my medical history because I had so much going on that I just forget. And then as I'm doing the research from the fibroids, I'm like, oh, yeah, I went into the doctor multiple times when I was suffering from PCOS, when I was whatever. And I actually had a laparoscopy that they cut a hole in my belly button and they shoved a tube down my belly button. And they did this look around my uterus and my ovaries to see what was happening because I had some endometriosis. I had these cysts all over my uterus. And I just got told it is what it is, right? You just have to wait and let it pass, or we're going to give you some hormones and try and balance this out. But nobody in all of that time, in all of those surgical procedures to try and figure out, nobody said, oh, hey, you could be insulin resistant, and that could be causing some of this to happen. Nope. Instead, test after test, procedure after procedure, trying to figure out why I had this excruciating pain, these lengthy periods, was unable to conceive, was gaining weight, getting hair on my face, losing hair on my head, all the stuff, right? Nobody said it's just insulin resistance, um, or it's likely insulin resistance. And if we just address the insulin resistance, you'll start to feel better. Nobody ever told me that. And I wish they would have. You guys, I look at my health now, and there are so many things that I was suffering from before that I know now, had I had answers about insulin resistance, I might not have had to suffer with them for so long. And that's part of the reason I'm here talking about it, because I know that if I didn't know, working with doctors, working with a hormone doctor, working in an allergy clinic, working in urgent care, doing x-rays and running tests and doing all the stuff, nobody ever talked about insulin resistance in all that time. So if I had access to all of this knowledge and I was around doctors every day and nobody ever addressed insulin resistance, I'm sure that most of you have never had a physician talk to you about insulin resistance and it being related to all of this stuff. So, yeah, if you're gaining weight, you have to be a bit insulin resistant in order for you to put the weight on. Because remember, insulin is going to deliver the energy to your cells. And if they don't take it up, then it starts putting it in your fat cells. That's excess energy, meaning the rest of the cells don't need the energy. We're putting it in your fat cells. That continued storage of fat means you're insulin resistant, but it looks different for different people. Let's talk about, do you want to talk about fat cells? Because I kind of want to talk about fat cells now that we're not talking about fibroids. By the way, excess weight does seem to be a factor with insulin resistance, but it's a factor with fibroids. And I think the link is more with the diabetes than it is with anything else. But that weight factor seems to be present with fibroids as well. So fat cells, just like we have, okay, so in our body we have two hormones. We're just going to talk about two of them, insulin and glucagon. So they're like the yin and the yang, right? Insulin comes out, that means we're burning sugar for fuel. Insulin is anabolic, it wants things to grow. It's going to hold on to everything and not let you break down fat, but encourage fat storage because it's a hormone of growth. Glucagon is catabolic. It wants to eat things up, but glucagon's main role is to get your blood sugars back up. So now it's scavenging. So we have that happen. There's always duality, right? But our fat cells are very different as well. So every single one of us has a different rate, metabolic rate in which our fat cells will grow. Some of us, about 30% of us, have this weird thing where our fat cells actually duplicate. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I was told we're born with the same fat cells that we die with. We never get more fat cells. We just grow and deplete those fat cells. I was also told that once we grew those fat cells and depleted them, that it was easier for them to fill up again. And I think there's some truth to that. I don't have any scientific data on it. But there's another group that their fat cells, instead of just growing and growing, they start to duplicate like little bunny rabbits. Now you have more places for insulin to stuff that energy. So now you're not getting a blood glucose spike in your labs because insulin's able to shove little bits into every fat cell. You're getting heavier, but you don't have markers of diabetes yet. So, right, there's fungal infection weight, which I just justified health. I actually was looking at that because that's interesting. I would love to talk with you because I need to learn more about that. Getting my insulin resistance under control took care of 90% of the stuff, but I still am really resistant to some of this weight. Is it genetics? I believe that there is something to do with toxicity because I just did a video last night where I talked about how I thought it was never going to affect me. And so I did all the stuff just being like, I'm bulletproof, nothing's going to affect me. And now at 60 years old, I'm dealing with the repercussions of not caring about um, molds. Well, I actually was in houses with molds and whatnot. I do a couple of cleanses a year, but I still feel like that at a cellular level, there's some issues that's not insulin resistant. So I'd love to talk to you, Justified Health. I think that's an amazing, amazing observation because I do feel like the inflammation in the cells, I'm just starting to learn about this, can actually cause and we know that it causes some excess weight through mechanisms with insulin, but that inflammation may not be being caused by excess insulin. It could be caused by something like molds, toxins, stress that cause the insulin to go up. And so until you get that stuff under control, then it becomes hard to lose weight. So back to the fat cells, though, Justified Health, I really appreciate that. But back to the fat cells. So we have these cells that are growing and they get really big, right? So you have some people who get a little bit obese, but they don't look like horrible, and yet they're highly diabetic. Then we have people whose fat cells duplicate, so more places for insulin to store stuff up. So you're getting heavier and heavier, you're getting bigger and bigger and jigglier, but your sugar levels aren't going up because the fat cells haven't filled up yet. So with those people, it takes longer for those fat cells to fill up. And so I'm going to show you guys something because I want to illustrate this um, by showing you two different people so you can understand a little bit about what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to remove this. And I'm going to show you two different people that will explain it. Well, there's me, first of all. So this was me, you guys, before the system that I talk about. So miserable, couldn't walk, couldn't breathe, couldn't sleep. I was trying to be happy and I was obviously not. And 5 months later, this was me, 55 pounds down, regaining my health and all of that. But this isn't about me. I want to talk about these two ladies because it shows you the difference with fat cells. And by the way, yes, the system works. Even if you're healthy, it's going to help you with a number of issues. Okay, so this is Cindy. Now, Cindy, I believe, has hypertrophic fat cells, meaning that her fat cells duplicate. So she got really, really big, up over 300 pounds, I believe, at one point. But her A1C only got to like 5.9, which is right in the pre-diabetic range. So how did she get so heavy and only be pre-diabetic when we look at Karen, who was, yeah, she had some weight on her, but she was extremely diabetic. Her A1C was 11.5. So we have one lady that's extremely obese and her A1C is low. We have another one that's mildly obese and her A1C is extremely high. It has to do with your fat cells and how your fat cells are growing in your system. So if you think that diabetes is about the weight or size, it's wrong. So diabetes is irrelevant of those issues. Now, most people with diabetes will have some type of weight disorder, but just being purely obese does not mean that you're not having a problem with insulin, or being thin doesn't mean you're not having a problem with insulin. There are other clues. And so let's talk about some of those other clues. So when we look at insulin resistance, some of the other clues, besides that big protruding belly that a lot of people get with insulin resistance, think about things like your energy level. If you're having headaches, that can be, if you're having a lot of headaches, you're putting on weight and you're having low energy, that could very well be insulin resistance. Yes, our lifestyles are stressed and we're full of anxiety and we have all of this stuff going on and that contributes, right? But insulin resistance causes the bigger problem with those because the cells are not getting energy. And so when we look at that, those are some clues. If you have skin tags, that's a very direct clue from your skin that you have insulin resistance. If you have those dark rings around your neck, on your elbows, I used to have really dark elbows all the way down here. That was a sign of insulin resistance. I had no idea. I just thought at some point that for whatever reason that I wasn't cleaning enough or that I leaned forward on my desk too much and I was causing this. And so I was using shea butter and sugar scrubs and coconut oil and all the stuff on my elbows to try and get those, and my knees to try and get that away. And nothing was working. And I was embarrassed and they would catch on my clothes and on everything else because the skin was scaly, but that's all gone. That dark skin patch is a sign of insulin resistance. The protruding belly is a sign of insulin resistance. PCOS and erectile dysfunction, those are direct signs of insulin resistance. So there are so many things that are going on with insulin resistance. If you make a list and start to see in the list of all of the things that you're doing that or that you're suffering from, that there's a high correlation between all of those in the lists that I show, understand that you're likely insulin resistant. And the easiest thing that you can do to start to take care of it is really lifestyle change. And that lifestyle change can be as simple as this, like it has been for me, for Dale, for Ro. Good morning, Dale. So it's like this, you guys. We have a tea in the morning. I'm drinking my tea now. We have a tea in the afternoon. The tea in the afternoon, why? These teas are giving you energy and satiety, and it's clinically and scientifically proven to do that. So it gives you this energy that you're suffering from low energy and brain fog. This is helping with that by getting nutrients into the brain. Now, when the brain has nutrients that it's getting in, now it doesn't have that brain fog. It doesn't have that I need energy thing going on, and your hunger goes down. The tea helps your hunger by cueing the brain that you're a little bit full. That's a GLP-1. That's the GLP-1 increase in your body causing this. Then you go into your gut and it's causing a little bit of gut distension, making your gut feel a little bit full. So now your hunger goes away. Your energy is up, but it's not an energy crash. It's a nice, even spike of energy that then comes down really easily and gently throughout the day. Then as it starts to come down, if I need extra energy to get through the rest of my day, then I just have a second one because it's not the energy drink that's damaging your heart. By the way, having these two teas every day and this pre-meal drink is what changed my blood pressure. The video I did last night, that's real. Like I cannot tell you enough. If you have high blood pressure, get it under control, get it under control, get it under control, because you will damage your heart. And so you want to get it under control. These helped me with my heart health instead of making it worse. Like my daughter-in-law loves like Red Bulls. She just can't seem to get over them. And it terrifies me because I know the damage that those Red Bulls, Bang Energy, all of those whatever energy drinks that they try to give you and they try to say they're so much better, those are still causing a lot of damage to your heart. With hypertension, your heart is already beating too fast because of this raised sympathetic nervous system thing and cortisol being raised in your body. Why would you ever give yourself one of those drinks that's just like hitting that heart so hard, making it race harder? This is giving energy, not just because of the caffeine. There's about the same amount of caffeine as a cup of coffee, but because we're actually getting nutrients to the body. Now it's an energy issue, right? You have a decrease in energy. Why do you have a decrease in energy? You have a decrease in energy because your body's not able to utilize the energy that you're eating. And so it's struggling. This helps you get that energy into your cells, and that's helpful for all of this insulin resistance piece. Then the pre-meal drink that I have just before I eat, this is reducing blood sugars and it's regulating my blood sugars and the fats in my blood. so that diabetes doesn't have to be a problem. Insulin resistance doesn't have to be a problem. And as a result, all of those other symptoms that we talk about, skin tags, stubborn weight, dark skin patches, migraine headaches, fatigue, a protruding belly, high blood pressure, all of that stuff starts to go away when you get the insulin resistance addressed. So, does anybody have questions this morning? We talked a little bit about fibroids. Did everybody catch the bit about fibroids and the 3 ways that I found that insulin resistance is contributing to fibroids in women? And 80% of women are suffering from them at some point in time between the time we start menstruation and the time we have menopause. Fibroids are painful and they're real, and yet we don't talk about them. And what if it was that simple? There's 3 drinks that are not giving you more medications and weird stuff, but just nutrition to your body that is helping with a number of other things that you could see help with your fibroids by potentially lessening the environment that is making them grow in the first place. Okay, you guys, it's about time. I have an early morning meeting, part of the reason I'm early today. I'll get all of the information on fibroids up on the blog post today, and I'll put a video up or a post about that on one of the platforms, all of the platforms. And I hope you go read some of those blog posts as I get them created. It will help answer a lot of questions for you about the system, about insulin resistance, about whatever it is that you may be suffering with, and does it actually relate to insulin resistance? If you ask me about something and there's no relation to insulin resistance, I'm going to come back and say I didn't find anything. But if you need answers on, like, I love to research. So if you want me to go find out and answer why you're suffering with something and you want to know, could it be insulin resistance? Could it be that easy as addressing your nutrition? And I'd love to go do that research and talk about it. Okay, I'm going to head out. You guys, I will be back tomorrow morning and we'll talk about insulin resistance some more then. And we're going to talk about the system a little bit more. You guys, the best thing I've done for my health and my family's health is do this system. And I'm going to show you guys this because this little guy's picture is up and I just want to show you. So when we talk about this, generally the people I talk to are closer to my age and older. But when I get questions about kids, we have children that are under 2 years old using parts of their parents' system. My own granddaughter drinks my tea all the time, but this young man, type 1 diabetes, okay? Type 1 diabetes. He was obese. He was having memory problems. He was having mood problems. He was having it was a miserable little life for him. His mama got him on this system, two drinks at 3 points during the day. She got him on the system. He lost over 35 pounds. He's now 13, not 11. He reduced his insulin load, his long-term insulin. He almost got rid of his fast-acting insulin. He still has to have it once in a while, but his long-term insulin load was reduced by at least 40%, and he's a type 1 diabetic. So yes, type 1 diabetics can suffer from this as well. Just because their body doesn't produce insulin doesn't mean they don't become resistant to insulin when we're getting too much of it all the time. I didn't talk about all that. So I'm going to say this, the lack of fiber. Fiber is what helps slow sugars down. We have a huge lack of fiber in our foods today, and this is one of the reasons we're seeing so much of this go on, because now sugars are going into our system unmediated and it's causing havoc. Fiber, and why this? Fiber, 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers that are specifically designed to reduce blood sugars. This is one of the keys. This is why I started getting better. This can reduce a blood sugar spike by up to 37%. They did that with a waffle breakfast, really high carb breakfast. It allowed them to reduce that blood sugar spike by 37% when the people were drinking this with their meal. So I never skip my fiber. I have 2 to 3 a day. You only have to do 1, but I just am a fiber nut. But a lack of fiber is one of the biggest things that's going on in our health today and why we're having so many problems. Okay, We'll talk more about that tomorrow. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for joining me. If you want more information on the fibroids, check for the longer form video later today and the blog post, and we'll see you there. And it's Brilliant Health, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.